By late 1944, in the shattered outskirts of Metz, France, American infantry units were facing an enemy they could not see and could not outshoot. German snipers had turned the ruins into a killing ground. Using overlapping fields of fire, pre-registered hide sites, and disciplined relocation tactics, they hunted Allied marksmen with clinical precision. One by one, American snipers were picked off. Within days, 23 were dead. Each loss made the survivors more cautious. Each pause made the Germans more effective. German sniper doctrine at this stage of the war was among the most refined in Europe. Teams operated in pairs, rotating firing positions, using rubble, shadows, and broken architecture to mask movement. They studied American habits, anticipated firing angles, and waited patiently for the slightest mistake. The ruins of Metz amplified their advantage. Collapsed walls created endless blind corners. Smoke and dust distorted depth perception. Every shattered window could hide a rifle barrel. For American snipers, the battlefield felt hostile in ways conventional combat never had. Attempts to counter the threat failed. Artillery was ineffective against isolated shooters. Infantry patrols walked into ambushes. Spotters were killed before they could relay information. American snipers, trained for precision and patience, found themselves reacting instead of hunting. Each engagement ended the same way: a single shot, then silence, then another body. Morale suffered. Snipers began to hesitate before exposing even a fraction of their head. Some refused to take shots unless absolutely certain. That caution, though understandable, played directly into German hands. The enemy controlled the tempo. They chose when to fire, when to move, and when to disappear. To the Americans on the ground, the German snipers seemed untouchable. It was in this environment that PFC Michael Donovan found himself assigned to Overwatch duty. Donovan was not a celebrated marksman. He was not part of an elite sniper school or a doctrinal innovator. He was an exhausted infantryman watching friends die in a fight that followed no rules he recognized. Every textbook solution had failed. Every authorized countermeasure had been tried. Nothing worked. Donovan noticed something others had overlooked. German snipers were not just skilled, they were confident. Their system relied on the assumption that the first man to expose himself would die. That assumption shaped everything. Americans peeked carefully. Germans waited. The moment flesh appeared, the rifle spoke. It was efficient, until someone stopped playing by that rule. Donovan did not come up with a new weapon. He did not receive special equipment. What he had was frustration, time, and a cheap shaving mirror scavenged from a kit. 10 cents worth of glass. A roll of tape. Nothing authorized, nothing approved. But enough to test an idea no manual mentioned. Instead of exposing himself, Donovan exposed the mirror. What happened next would break the German system completely. Donovan's idea was simple enough to sound reckless. He taped the small shaving mirror to a piece of scrap metal and extended it slowly from behind cover, angling it just enough to reflect the opposite ruins. To anyone watching through a scope, it looked exactly like the glint of an exposed eye or helmet edge. The German snipers took the bait immediately. A shot cracked through the rubble, shattering the mirror in an explosion of glass. That single shot revealed everything. The muzzle flash, the sound delay, the direction of impact, and the dust displacement exposed the firing position in ways that had been impossible before. German snipers relied on remaining unseen after firing. The mirror forced them to shoot first on Donovan's terms, and that moment of revelation was all he needed. While the enemy relocated, Donovan was already lining up his return fire. The mirror was replaced, again and again. Each time, the Germans fired. Each time, their positions were exposed. Donovan was no longer reacting. He was hunting. The battlefield dynamic flipped almost instantly. German snipers who had operated with impunity now hesitated. If they didn't shoot, they risked being spotted. If they did, they gave themselves away. Their confidence became their weakness. The trick worked because it attacked the psychology of sniper combat, not the mechanics. German doctrine emphasized patience and first-shot dominance. The mirror disrupted that rhythm. It forced premature shots. It introduced doubt. A sniper who hesitates dies. A sniper who fires too early reveals himself. Donovan had created a no-win scenario using nothing more than glass and tape. Word spread quickly among nearby units. Other snipers began copying the method, improvising mirrors from shattered equipment, compact cases, even polished metal. Within days, the casualty trend reversed. German sniper fire dropped sharply. American snipers began eliminating their counterparts at a rate that stunned officers tracking the engagements. What had been a one-sided slaughter became a systematic counter-hunt. German snipers adapted as best they could, changing angles, delaying shots, and attempting to bait Americans in return. But the edge was gone. The illusion of invisibility had been shattered. Every reflective surface now carried risk. Every potential target could be a decoy. The ruins of Metz, once a German killing ground, became unpredictable and hostile. The mirror trick was never officially authorized. It violated basic sniper safety rules. Exposing reflective surfaces risked detection. But in practice, the risk was minimal compared to the advantage gained. The trick did not make Donovan invincible. It made him informed. And in sniper warfare, information is lethal. By the end of the fighting around Metz, American sniper casualties had dropped dramatically. At least 60 lives were attributed to the shift in tactics, lives that would almost certainly have been lost had the German system remained intact. Yet the method never appeared in manuals. No formal commendation followed. The mirror trick existed only in after-action reports and personal recollections. It was too simple, too improvised, too unauthorized, and that is why it was almost forgotten. The effectiveness of the mirror trick became impossible to ignore. Within days, American units operating in and around Metz reported a sharp decline in sniper casualties. Engagements that had once ended in sudden, unexplained deaths now followed a different pattern. German shots were drawn out deliberately, firing positions were identified, and return fire followed with deadly precision. The battlefield dynamic had shifted decisively. Yet, despite its success, the method remained unofficial, undocumented in doctrine, and largely absent from post-war analysis. The reason was not disbelief. It was discomfort. The mirror trick violated several core principles of sniper training. It relied on deliberate exposure, accepted the destruction of equipment, and depended on baiting the enemy rather than concealment. From a doctrinal perspective, it looked reckless. From a bureaucratic perspective, it was worse. It was invented by a junior soldier, used without authorization, and spread informally through word of mouth rather than command channels. There was no clear way to attribute it, standardize it, or control its application. Military institutions tend to favor solutions that can be formalized, trained, and regulated. The mirror trick resisted all three. It required judgment, timing, and an understanding of enemy psychology that could not be easily codified. Used poorly, it could get someone killed. Used well, it was devastating. That variability made senior officers wary. Rather than risk endorsing a method that might fail in other contexts, it was quietly tolerated and then ignored. There was also a cultural factor. Wartime innovation often comes from desperation rather than planning, and such improvisations rarely fit neatly into official narratives. The mirror trick did not involve new technology, industrial production, or command-level brilliance. It involved a 10-cent mirror and a soldier willing to question assumptions. That kind of innovation is difficult to celebrate without also admitting that existing methods had failed. After the fighting moved on, attention shifted to larger operations, bigger battles, and more conventional forms of heroism. Individual tactical adaptations faded into background noise. Reports mentioning mirrors and decoys were filed away, overshadowed by discussions of artillery, armor, and logistics. The men who survived because of the trick returned home. The dead did not. And the method that helped reverse the sniper war in Metz quietly disappeared from institutional memory. This was not unusual. History is filled with small, effective solutions that never become doctrine because they challenge established thinking. The mirror trick was one of them. It worked not because it was sophisticated, but because it exploited a human weakness. German snipers trusted their system. They trusted their patience and marksmanship. The mirror forced them to act when they should have waited. That single disruption was enough. For Donovan, there was no expectation of recognition. He did not see himself as an innovator. He saw himself as someone who wanted to survive and help others do the same. The mirror was not a symbol. It was a tool. When it broke, he replaced it. When it worked, he kept using it. When the battle ended, he moved on. What remained was a lesson rarely emphasized in official histories. Wars are not only shaped by generals and factories, they are shaped by moments when someone notices a flaw in the enemy's thinking and exploits it with whatever is at hand. In Metz, that flaw was overconfidence, and the tool that exposed it cost less than $1. When the fighting around Metz finally subsided, the sniper war that had claimed so many lives simply ended. There was no official declaration, no doctrinal breakthrough announced from headquarters. German sniper activity faded as positions were abandoned, units pulled back, and confidence shattered. American snipers, once hunted relentlessly, regained freedom of movement. Patrols became possible again. The battlefield changed character. Yet the reason for that change never entered the official story of the campaign. PFC Michael Donovan's mirror trick did not appear in training manuals, after-action summaries, or post-war doctrine, not because it failed, but because it succeeded in a way the system could not easily explain. It was an unauthorized adaptation that exposed a flaw in elite enemy tactics using nothing more than observation and nerve. There was no new weapon to produce, no procedure to standardize, no safe checklist to follow. It relied on judgment, timing, and a deep understanding of enemy psychology. Those are things armies struggle to institutionalize. After the war, history favored large explanations, industrial output, strategic bombing, combined arms doctrine. The mirror trick did not fit into those frameworks. It was small, local, and human. It did not change the war. It changed a fight. And for the men who survived because of it, that distinction mattered far more than recognition. What makes the story uncomfortable is not that it sounds unbelievable, but that it sounds obvious in hindsight. German snipers relied on first-shot dominance. They trusted their invisibility. They assumed exposure meant vulnerability. Donovan reversed that assumption. He offered a target that could not be killed, forced the enemy to reveal themselves, and struck back. It was not clever engineering. It was clarity under pressure. This is how many real innovations in war happen, not through planning, but through desperation, not through permission, but through necessity. And often they vanish because they highlight a truth institutions prefer not to dwell on, that rigid systems can be broken by simple ideas when someone is willing to think differently. The mirror itself did not survive the war. Neither did most of the men involved. What remains is a lesson buried beneath larger narratives. That sometimes the difference between being hunted and becoming the hunter is not better equipment, but a willingness to challenge the assumptions everyone else accepts. In the ruins of Metz, German snipers learned that lesson too late. Their system had been unbeatable only as long as it went unquestioned. A 10-cent mirror was enough to expose it, and once exposed, it collapsed. This is not a story about a miracle weapon or a superhuman soldier. It is the story of how one man noticed what everyone else missed, acted without authorization, and saved dozens of lives in the process. That is why this story matters. Not because it is dramatic, but because it is real.